Early on, feminist ideas and concepts were passed on in publications and at symposiums. In the 1980s, rallies began to be organized. We made our appeals with protests, public outcries, and public meetings concerning the political rights of different kinds of people. Over time, women gradually began to have the opportunity to express their opinions. Beginning in the 1990s, community organizations and women's groups began joining forces, opening up another channel for the women's movement.
At first, we were members of the Homemakers Union. One time, while promoting environmental protection, we realized that green consumption was important. We hoped to found a nonprofit organization that would seek to satisfy public demand for healthy and safe products. We set up a cooperative shop so we might change society one purchase at a time. In having established this group working for green consumption, we hope to change society, especially with regard to protecting the environment. We hope that women will participate more in businesses concerned with protecting the environment.
The end of martial law in 1987 saw the establishment of women's groups concerned with a variety of issues. The areas these groups pay attention to have also diversified. FemBooks, founded in 1994 in Taipei, was the first bookstore to specialize in feminist works in areas where Chinese is spoken. Women of all ages and backgrounds look for information and seek self-improvement in the bookstore. In 1996, following a strong push by private groups, the Taipei Association of Women's Rights Promotion was established, a cross-governmental department organization that promotes the protection and advancement of women's rights. It was the first official organization to deal with women's affairs in Taiwan. The next year, the Cross-Ministry Commission on Women's Rights Promotion under the Executive Yuan was established. Acting like a foundation, the Commission implements projects promoting women's rights.
We were established by the Executive Yuan and are a juridical entity funded by the Ministry of the Interior. The majority of our funds are provided by the government, which sets us apart from NGOs. What we do can be divided into 4 categories. The first is providing a channel for women's organizations to communicate and interact with one another. Secondly, we have an online information center for women. Here, an online platform is provided for women's organizations to express their opinions and thoughts. Thirdly, we conduct research on issues concerning women and gender. Lastly, there is the international sphere, where we work with many foreign NGOs. We have also been working with Taiwan's NGOs on matters of international consequence.
Through the efforts of both the public and private sectors, and working through NGOs, Taiwan has been participating in international conferences and workshops on promoting women's rights. Through this, we hope to improve women's social status in Taiwan and enhance international exchanges and communications. While Taiwan has been working towards gender parity in politics for a long time, women's personal safety and freedom have been ignored issues. Domestic violence only started to gain public attention and be debated in 1993 after the high-profile trial of Deng Ruwan for the murder of her husband.
Just before I took on the Deng case, I was preparing to go abroad. I got a call and was informed there was a woman suffering from domestic violence. She had run away from home and her husband had reported her missing. The police found her and brought her home. The very next day, she killed her husband.
Her mother and younger sister were raped, and her son was abused by her husband. These things were not taken into account.
Deng had sought police help while suffering 7 long years of abuse at the hands of her husband, but she did not receive any kind of help. They felt she was just a bad person because they had a traditional perspective of things. They felt that she must have done something unconscionable and that, therefore, she had to kill her husband. People even doubted that Deng could have committed the crime by herself, believing that the mob might have been behind the incident. Taiwan's people did not take pity on this battered woman, as they saw a wife killing her husband as simply unacceptable. Women's groups consider this case a turning point. For a long time, domestic violence had not been taken seriously in Taiwan, so Deng was turned from a victim into a criminal. We felt that this case should be looked at as a social question to bring about the establishment of a domestic violence prevention mechanism.
Deng's case was only one of countless domestic violence incidents in Taiwan at the time. Women's groups urged the government to enact laws to punish domestic violence. The Ministry of the Interior allotted money to the Awakening Foundation and commissioned it to see what was feasible. Meanwhile, the Modern Women's Foundation sent people to the U.S. to learn from their experiences. Finally, in 1998, the legislature passed the Domestic Violence Prevention Act.
Battered women at the time needed to collect 3 medical reports within just 6 months in order to get a divorce. The entire judicial system would tell these women to consider remaining with their families. There were no shelters to provide abused women with judicial assistance, psychological support, or counseling. Even if there was evidence of domestic violence, judges still might not support these women. The situation for abused women was terrible at that time. Now, with laws having been passed, medical institutions are not allowed to refuse to examine women and must issue medical certificates. Professional services are provided by the police and social affairs personnel. Victims can now receive help without having to feel nervous or afraid. I have participated in many women's movements. The adoption of the Domestic Violence Prevention Act helped me to see the power of politics. This power links together many small points, which form an entire network. As a lawyer, I help people one at a time. So I could help, for example, one Deng Ju Wen, but not thousands. However, with the adoption of the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, every city and county government is required to establish a Domestic Violence Prevention Center and a Domestic Violence Prevention Committee. The Ministry of the Interior was also directed to set up a Domestic Violence Prevention Committee to plan, promote, and educate people on national domestic violence policies. When an organization is established, people and funds are provided. Working as a team, we can do much more than we can as individuals.